The studio lights were blazing, the cameras were rolling, and the tension in the room was palpable as Donald Trump and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett faced each other during a live televised political roundtable. From the moment the segment began, it was clear this was going to be more than a routine exchange of policy views. Trump, dressed in his signature suit and red tie, entered the discussion with an assertive energy, dominating the early moments with broad statements about his accomplishments and criticisms of his opponents. Crockett, known for her quick wit and unflinching presence, listened closely, her expression revealing little but her mind clearly at work. The moderator attempted to maintain control, steering the conversation toward economic policy, but the undercurrent of personal tension was undeniable. It was during a particularly heated moment, when Crockett pressed Trump on inconsistencies in his statements about health care, that the former president leaned forward, pointed toward her, and said in a sharp, dismissive tone, "Sit down, girl." The room froze. Gasps rippled through the audience, and the other panelists exchanged wide-eyed glances, realizing they had just witnessed a moment that would instantly become headline news. Crockett did not flinch. Instead, she leaned forward herself, her voice steady but carrying a piercing edge that sliced through the silence. "I'll sit down when you learn to stand up for the truth," she replied. Her words landed like a thunderclap, and for a split second, the entire set seemed to stop breathing. Trump leaned back slightly, his expression hardening, perhaps surprised that his attempt to diminish her had been met with a retort so direct and cutting. The audience reacted immediately, some clapping, others murmuring in astonishment at the boldness of her response. Crockett's composure was unshakable. She didn't raise her voice, yet the force behind her statement was undeniable. It was the kind of moment that transcended the segment's original topic and instantly became a symbolic clash between two towering political personalities. The moderator attempted to recenter the conversation, but the electricity in the room had shifted entirely. In the minutes that followed, the dynamic between Trump and Crockett transformed. Trump, perhaps seeking to reassert dominance, began to interrupt her points more frequently, questioning her grasp of economic and foreign policy. Crockett, however, countered each interruption with both facts and a tone that made it clear she would not be talked over. "You can't lead a country by talking down to half of it," she said at one point, earning another wave of applause. The back and forth began to resemble less a policy debate and more a battle of wills, each participant aware that millions of Americans were watching and judging their every move. By this point, social media was already buzzing. Clips of the "sit down, girl" exchange were being clipped, subtitled, and shared at lightning speed. Hashtags like #SitDownGirl and #CrockettClapback began trending, turning what had been a tense moment into a viral political flashpoint. Trump, never one to shy away from conflict, tried to regain control of the narrative. He accused Crockett of disrespecting the office of the presidency and claimed that her reply had been inappropriate for live television. Crockett, with a faint smile that conveyed equal parts confidence and defiance, replied, "What's inappropriate is trying to silence a representative elected by the people." The line resonated strongly with viewers who saw her as embodying a refusal to be diminished by political power or gendered language. In that moment, Crockett's words were not just about defending herself, they were about defending the right of any public servant to speak truth to power without being subjected to condescension. The studio audience erupted once again, and even some panelists who had been quiet began nodding in agreement. What made Crockett's reaction so powerful was not just her ability to respond quickly, but her command of the room afterward. She seamlessly pivoted back to the original topic, healthcare reform, laying out a detailed critique of Trump's policies while weaving in anecdotes from her constituents. This approach demonstrated that she could both confront personal slights and maintain focus on substantive issues. Trump attempted a few more jabs, but each time Crockett met them with a counter grounded in facts and delivered with unshakable poise. At one point, when Trump interrupted her mid-sentence, she raised her hand slightly and said, "You had your turn, now it's mine," in a voice so calm that it drew laughs from the audience. The moderator, sensing that this exchange had taken on a life of its own, largely allowed it to continue, perhaps knowing that this was the kind of television that would be replayed for days, if not weeks. By the time the segment ended, the atmosphere in the room had completely shifted. Trump's initial attempt to diminish Crockett had backfired, elevating her stature in the eyes of many viewers. The final moments saw Crockett delivering a succinct closing statement about unity and accountability in government, while Trump offered a final defense of his record, but the energy was clearly in her favor. Outside the studio, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. News outlets from across the political spectrum picked up the story, each framing it according to their own editorial slant. Conservative commentators defended Trump's phrasing as casual and non-malicious, while progressive voices criticized it as sexist and dismissive. Independent analysts focused on Crockett's ability to turn the moment into a political advantage. Within hours, late-night hosts were making jokes about the exchange, and political cartoonists had already begun illustrating it for their columns. Crockett herself addressed the incident on social media later that evening. Without directly mentioning Trump, she wrote, "Never let anyone tell you to sit down when you're standing for the people." The post quickly went viral, garnering hundreds of thousands of likes and retweets. Supporters flooded the comments with praise, calling her a role model for assertiveness in the political arena. Trump, for his part, dismissed the backlash in a brief interview, calling the uproar overblown, and insisting that he had no regrets about what he said. In the days that followed, the exchange became a symbolic reference point in discussions about gender, respect, and the nature of political discourse in America. Pundits debated whether Trump's comment would hurt his standing among key demographics or if it would rally his base further. Meanwhile, Crockett was invited onto several national programs to discuss not only the incident but her policy positions, giving her an expanded platform she used to advocate for her legislative priorities. By the end of the week, the moment had already cemented itself as one of the most memorable live political clashes in recent memory. For Trump's supporters, it was another example of his refusal to back down. For Crockett's supporters, it was proof of her resilience and refusal to be silenced. And for the millions who watched it unfold, it was a reminder that in politics, as in life, the right words at the right moment can change everything.